Hi, sweethearts. I just really felt the urge to connect with you all tonight. Thank you to those of you who listened to the Enjoy show last night. Thank you for the emails I've gotten and for the people afterwards in the chat room who said that they enjoyed the show and they really connected with what we were talking about. I personally feel so energised after that show. I felt it was 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK when that show wrapped, and I felt so energised and so completely inspired. I started writing. I mean, I'm having trouble sleeping at the moment anyway because we're basically effectively experiencing a heat wave by UK standards at the moment, so it's really difficult to sleep. I look on my Facebook feed, on my personal Facebook page, and it's just jam packed with all of these statuses from people saying, I can't find a fan, everywhere's sold out, all of the supermarkets have sold out, where do I get a fan? So nobody can sleep, and some people have had to take time off work because they really just can't get any shut eye because it is so damn hot. So yeah, I was having trouble sleeping anyway, and that was not helped by how completely inspired I was after the show. I had to start writing. I had to open up my ebook document and start writing things down. I'm writing an ebook at the moment. The working title is Words of Love for the Hungry Heart. And it's really just a collection of bits and pieces, really, short essays, inspirational things, little nuggets of acquired wisdom from one traveller to another, I suppose you could say. And I really opened up that ebook last night and started writing for a while, so it really did energise me and make me feel freshly invigorated. I love getting into conversations that you haven't really gotten into for a while, that you kind of find that you've changed your opinion on them, but you haven't really assessed that and re-explored it, and then you get into this situation either organically and unexpectedly or as part of something like a radio show, like the Enjoy show, which is so much about intuitively bringing up discussions that really come to us in the moment, and you find that you're able to reassess and re-explore all of these old concepts that you thought you were kind of like at one with, but you shifted, you've transitioned, and you kind of need to reassess how you feel about something. And then these conversations come up that you've never really thought about before, or people give you these nuggets of information about different things that are going on, and you can really kind of dig in and enjoy the feeling of letting new thoughts come into your mind and letting them kind of absorb into your being. So it was really a righteous experience for me, and I want to thank Judy and Brian so much for letting me be a part of it. It was really cool. Never done anything like that before, and I'm a bit of a technophobe, so I was a bit nervous about how it was gonna go. You know, they were explaining to me it's so easy. You know, you just connect via Skype like usual, and it's all recorded. But in my mind, I was like, oh gosh, everything's gonna go drastically wrong. But no, it was all fine. Went off without a hitch. So I just wanted to connect and talk about a few things really that I've been thinking about and going through and really aligning myself with since my own shift, which I spoke about in the Hold Your Own Hand video, which I want to say as well a massive thank you to everybody who really resonated with that video, and the comments that some of you wrote were really heartfelt and came from a really pure place. I felt like there was quite a lot of connection going on around that video. There are obviously a lot of people that feel like they're in a similar place in their lives, and it meant a lot to me to see so many people responding and, you know, saying, you know, I've been through something similar, that's what I'm going through now, hang in there. So that was really lovely of you all. I wanted to talk a little bit first of all tonight about healing and helping people and guiding people and being that guiding force in people's lives, because I tend to find that a lot of the clients that I connect with over on the shop with my readings and stuff, as well as a lot of my loved ones and friends, people that I feel are kind of a bond with that's come into being through this similarity that we have with each other, which is all about being a guide and being a helping force. I find that people are in a situation at the moment where a lot of people are coming to them for guidance, and where they feel like they proactively want to help somebody with the struggles that they're going through in life. We really want to connect and engage with each other. But sometimes it can be difficult for people to recognise where they need to draw their own line. And my mum always used to use a great analogy, which I want to share with you now, and which I shared with the people on my Facebook page a few days ago. She always said that it's very important to make sure that you are on a lifeboat before you try and pull anybody else up out of the water. And I think that's really the analogy that I've stuck with, and it's so visceral in my mind, and it really is the whole animal, that analogy. You know, you cannot pull somebody out of their own pain and distress. You can't help somebody through their own emotional wounds when you still have these deep emotional wounds, these intense emotional issues yourself that you haven't worked through. And, you know, the reason for that is simple. You can't be 100% strong, you can't be 100% in the seat of your power, you can't have that near to perfect self-knowledge that you need in order to help somebody navigate through their own confusion if you haven't worked on what still needs to be worked on, you know? And it doesn't make any sense to ignore your own needs in favour of constantly helping other people with theirs, because you'll very quickly go to burnout city. So if your real concern is helping people with what they're going through and guiding them and being that guiding light for them, then the best thing that you can do for those people is to help yourself, obviously, because it means that you can give and guide and advise for the long term. And I think a great many people who have these jobs as healers of any kind, helpers of any kind, counsellors, that kind of thing, I'm particularly thinking about jobs and also personality types which kind of go towards that, helping people with the emotional spectrum, helping people really get through the crap that they've got going on. A lot of those people have an innate awareness and an intuitive awareness of when they need to stop and when they need to step back and when they need to actually rejuvenate themselves and actually refuel their own tank. Because when you run on empty, you know, you think it's compassionate, you think you're doing the right thing, you think you're really giving your all to somebody else, and that's a beautiful thing to do. But eventually when you roll into burnout city with your wheels on fire, you're going to realise that nobody's really going to thank you for that. You know, it's not going to be good for you, and it's not going to be good for the people who feel that they can rely on you and are trying to connect with you. So I just feel it's really important at this moment in time for anybody who finds themselves working in any kind of helping or guiding capacity with somebody in their life that's leaning on you, that's really coming to you for guidance and for expansion and for you to help them navigate their way through their own difficulty. It's important to try and think about whether or not you're on a boat at this moment in time. Reflect on what your situation is at this time. And if you find it exceptionally difficult to be a guiding force for somebody, if you're finding that that pressure that keeps you on the edge and keeps you excited and keeps you enjoying life has turned into stress and is now no longer productive and no longer healthy, but is actually making you tear your hair out a little bit, then it's likely that you are not on a boat at this moment in time, and that's okay. You know, it's okay to realise that you need to get your ass onto a lifeboat, but you need to give yourself the time to do that. You need to step away. And sometimes that involves being authentic with the words that you say. It involves speaking a personal truth or two. And that can be difficult, particularly when, you know, we have hang-ups about appearing to be selfish or appearing to be insular. We always want to be there for people, not only because that's how we feel in our heart space that we want to do that, but also maybe because we feel that that's part of who we are. That's part of the image that we project to the world, you know, that we are this helper, we are this listener. I think if you're a spiritually centered person, particularly, this comes along with things like friendship groups. If you're a spiritually centered person, you very quickly become the organic listening ear for the group, right? And that's because you are so comfortable talking about the emotional spectrum. You might talk to your friends quite openly about things like resistance and allowance, standing in your personal power, whatever it is. When somebody kind of casually talks about a problem that they have, they're trying to engage with you, it will be you, that person that lives in a spiritually centered way and always endeavours to do that, who will come out with the most potent advice and will give that person usually the most avenues down which to explore. So you'll be the person that they come back to, right? You're going to be the one that they remember when they have an issue again and they need somebody to really give them some guidance and really give them a wake-up call or really give them a chance to express themselves without being judged and be listened to without that person that always wants to reply. I find that being spiritually centered is often about just giving people that space and time to heal, without being eager to interrupt and come from ego level with like, yes, I have a solution to that problem. Spiritually centered people don't tend to do that, and that's why they're so often called upon. When people go through crap at different stages in their lives, when they transition, you will be the person that they will come to for guidance again because of your great performance last time, which is ever so lovely. But I feel like sometimes we take that onto our ego level and we think, yes, this is a part of my identity. This is what I'm known for. I'm known for advising. I'm known for guiding. I'm known for getting people over that tough part of the hill and down into the next valley. That's what I'm known for. That's what I do. And it's very dangerous when we attach things like that to who we are as people and to how we wish to be perceived, because you're not always in a mindset and you're not always grappling with a set of circumstances which will allow that. You know, you're not always permitted in the parameters of your own life to be that listening ear. Sometimes you need to focus on the self. And sometimes you really need to say, look, I can give this, but I can't give this. Or right now I'm really dealing with this and I need that quiet, I need that contemplation. And it's okay to do that. I think you need to release the bond that that kind of expectation has on you, whether you feel it comes from outside sources or whether you feel it comes from within. It's really important to think about that boat analogy and really keep that in mind, I think. Another thing I wanted to say, I've been wanting to say this for quite some time now because it happened a couple of weeks ago, but I was having an ongoing discussion with one of my clients who's currently, well, she's just undergone a month of intention with me. And it was really intense, it was really profound, and I enjoyed every moment of it, but it was challenging. Working with a spiritual counsellor for a whole month, digging up shit that you really haven't made your peace with yet, that you know that you need to get through, but you need that direction, you need those techniques. Working for a whole month is a huge commitment, and it is a commendable commitment. It is a commitment that I would really salute anybody for going through with. And what I tend to find when I give a tarot reading, when I do a counselling session with somebody, whether it's online, whether it's somebody in my life, I find that it always affects me and changes me and helps me pretty much to the extent that it helps and affects and changes the other person. Yes, I stay strong in my centre, I stay strong in my core, and I don't let the emotions and the outpourings of my client affect me. But I also feel like I learn so much. I take on so many different perspectives, and I absolutely love every minute of it. And I come away with all of these different ideas for things that I can blog about and things that I can do, things that I can maybe talk to other people in my life about who are struggling with the same thing. And I've seen the perspective of that client, and it's kind of triggered something in my mind, and I've remembered that, yes, maybe I could have that conversation with that other person, and I could discuss the same techniques that I've discussed with that client with that other person and see if that helps. And I'm always adding to the arsenal when it comes to the readings that I do and stuff. Every single time I do a reading for somebody, I really learn something and I get a fresh perspective. And then when that issue comes up again with another client in a slightly different way, I feel like I've added more weapons to my arsenal of advice and guidance and different techniques and things that I can posit and put forth. So it's really as nourishing and nurturing for me as it is for the people that are coming to a reading to get that nourishing and that nurturing that they need. And I was talking with this client during our month of intention, and she said that she was going to start making a piece of art that expressed her journey from the lowest point in her life to now, and really expressed how those low points in her life have affected her and changed her. And she said that the piece of artwork that she was going to make would be ugly beautiful. And I read that, and then I reread it, and then I reread it again, and I thought, my God, that really is much more profound than the sum of its parts, if you really think about it. Ugly beautiful. And that's what you can look at your difficult life experiences, your challenges, your traumas as being. You can see them as being ugly beautiful. I think that a lot of the time we talk about perspective when challenges come up or when there are old emotional wounds that we need to deal with. And I really am on that bandwagon 100%, and I don't mind saying it. I think it's all about perspective. I went through some very difficult challenges when I was younger, very difficult challenges with mental health and that kind of thing. I felt some things that were incredibly lonely, incredibly scary, excruciating in some senses, and I have in the past completely and utterly lost my noodle. I lost my mind completely. And this is something that I'm being very raw and honest about here, but it's something that for a while I've been thinking that I would get into on the channel, and in the end I just thought, to hell with it, you know? I think it's really important that we share these experiences and that we be honest and valid and straight up about the things that have really made us who we are. And that's one experience that I feel has really moulded me and made me have to reassess and re-explore in so many ways. And I do consider now those challenges that I went through, those scary low points where I really did not know if I was going to become anything that even resembled a normal high-functioning human being in this world. I see those times now as ugly beautiful in my memory. They're ugly because when I revisit them, when I explore them, and when I realise how I can see the tangible results of them in some of the issues that I have now, and how things sometimes still need to be worked through, the shadow self, etc. I see fragments that have broken away from me that I need to kind of recollect. It's kind of it's an ongoing soul retrieval for me, in a sense, when I look back to those days. But it's beautiful as well, in the sense that it's enriched me, and it's given me many more layers than I would have had without it, I think. And I feel it's really given me a great ability to empathise with other people who are going through similar things. And for many people that can seem like cold comfort, I suppose, the ability to empathise with a terrible thing. But for me, I feel that it is a gift. And it's a gift that I've utilised more and more as I've become more confident in talking about my experience. I think a few years ago, I wouldn't be that person who would come out, you know, if I heard somebody trying to talk about their own experience, trying to really put it out there and not knowing if they were going to get any empathy or guidance in return, I would not be that person who would put up their hand and say, I understand, I also used to self-harm. It was systemic, it went on for quite a long time, and there was all of this mental health um, landscape behind it that I had to kind of navigate, and the terrain was mental. I didn't have a map. You know, talk to me about where you're coming from. Where are you now? What are your desired feelings now? That's the kind of thing I would do these days and have done. Just a few months ago, a friend's brother started talking very unexpectedly and off the cuff about the issues that he'd been through. And he's young, my friend's brother. He's about 10 years younger than me. And he was talking about these difficulties that he'd been through in his early teens and how that had led him to being a total renegade and totally kind of losing the plot, not understanding what life was all about, feeling lonely, feeling alienated, stagnating. And he started talking about a kind of a day trip he had to Self-Harm City. And it was very difficult for the people in the room, I think. It came at a very kind of, it was a blindsiding. It came in an unexpected way. We were talking about something that was kind of related, but I don't think anybody was expecting it to go to such a raw place. And I really came out of my shell. I really felt this calling. And I have done many times over the past few years when people have started opening up. Maybe they intuitively know that there is at least one person in the room who can help out and who can really give them that space that they need with no prejudgments, without assuming that their situation is identical to mine, because of course it's not, but that foundation of common ground on which you can build the house of healing is what I tend to be able to offer now, and I really put it forth. And I think that's why I see my experience as ugly beautiful. So that really kind of struck me and moved me. And I think when you look back over the challenging experiences that have really knocked you down and built you up and shaped you and reshaped you and hammered you and put nails in you and made you stand upright, but also made you go through a lot of pain in the process, I think it is about perspective. And I think that a lot of my ability now to understand the relationship between releasing and receiving comes from these difficult challenges that I had in the past and how I actually got to the other side of them. And I'm planning on doing a video which actually goes into a few of the techniques that I use and a few of the concepts that I feel I really needed to embrace in order to actually put down the razor and start living my life. Stop hiding. Stop insisting on being non-communicative. Stop insisting that other people didn't understand, that there was no unity, that there was no oneness, and that life was pain. You know, that there's no point in being positive, and there's no point in even talking about that, because I knew about how bad life really got. In a sense, that's how I felt. That's not how I feel anymore. And there were certain techniques that I needed to use to really get past the self-harm and to really get past the other bad habits that I was employing to try and stop me from recognising my infinite love, my core, my being, this wonderful, transient picture show of an experience I'm having right here. It's scary to embrace that. And it's much easier to stay in pain, I think. At the time, you don't realise that. You don't realise it's a blanket. You don't realise that it's something that you're shrouding yourself in to stay safe. You don't realise that. You think that you would do anything in the whole wide world to get rid of that pain. But when you come out the other side of it, you quite often realise that it was a shroud. It was a way of not embracing the whole spectrum of human emotion. It was a way of avoiding the risks of things like love and unity and trust and openness and vulnerability, all of that stuff, which has a lot of risk attached to it. It's not a risk-free transaction. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You know, you should give of yourself in this life, or don't at all. There is no halfway house. And I feel like a lot of my issues were that halfway house. I might have thought at the time that it was all terrible and hellish, but why did I stay there then? There must have been a reason. And I know that reason now. I know that I thought I was in this little safe house where everything was simple and made sense, and life is pain, and that's me, that's who I am. And underneath there was all of this other intriguing and invigorating and profound stuff that was swimming around waiting for me to embrace it, and I didn't. I couldn't do it. I did not have what it took at that time. I told myself I didn't have what it took, and what it took was for me to tell myself that I did. So I'm going to talk about the techniques and the concepts that I really got in touch with to get to that point, because I think that could be helpful for some of you. So yeah, you know, releasing and receiving, I've been doing a lot of that recently, and I think it's fair to say at this point in my life that it is completely obvious and totally unavoidable that in order to receive some of that good stuff that's out there that I'm trying to manifest towards me, I need to release some stuff. I need to empty my arms so that I can grab what's coming. And that's very difficult to do. And it feels like a compromise a lot of the time. Compromise has a very negative connotation attached to it. When the word compromise comes up, it's good and it's bad. It depends what the context is. If you think about romantic relationships, for example, if you think about the way compromise is spoken about in broad terms when we talk about romance and love and marriage and all that stuff, there's a great big divide. There are two camps, you know. There are some people that are totally like, compromise isn't on the agenda. The one thing you shouldn't compromise on in your life is love. If it's not working, just get rid of it, you know. Chuck it out, start fresh, forget it. And then there's this whole other camp that are like, marriage is built on compromise, long-term relationship is built on compromise, compromise is practical, it's healthy, it's healing, it's productive. This whole thing is kind of reminding me of that song, It's Got to Be Perfect. I'm not going to sing. I don't mind my singing voice, but I only do singing in the shower, and it's normally the blues. But yeah, it's got to be perfect. Too many people take second best, but I won't take anything less, that one. So yeah, there's a great big dichotomy and a great big debate when it comes to compromise. But I think releasing in order to receive is a very healthy kind of compromise. And releasing might involve crying. It might involve kind of dark nights of the soul, long nights on your own, retreating a little bit from the people who are so keen to invest you with their advice and everything. But sometimes you just need to step back. You can't have that decent phone connection with your intuition unless you kind of walk up the mountain somewhere and hold that phone in the air and say, right, okay, I've got it. I'm ages away from the campsite. I'm all on my own, but I've finally got a decent connection to my intuition. That's kind of how it works. That's the analogy that I like to go with. Sometimes you need to go off into the wilderness in order to get that great connection. And it can seem like a bit of a pain in the arse, but once you're out there, you realise why you've done it, and you can look at the splendid scenery at the same time and realise that you are a part of that scenery. You yourself are an intrinsic part of that scenery. So yeah, I think releasing and receiving is a lot to do with the release part of it anyway, is a lot to do with pushing yourself through emotional resistance. A lot of the releasing that I've done in my life, the emotional releasing, has been bound up very literally with therapeutic journaling, with writing my arse off, writing it out of me, writing down the bones, as Natalie Goldberg likes to call it. And I think that therapeutic journaling, writing in order to obtain some kind of result which you feel is beyond you, but which you feel you'll be able to kind of unlock as you go through the layers and you write them out of you, that takes for a lot of emotional resistance to be knocked down. That is not easy work at all. It sounds so luxurious, doesn't it? You sit there in a coffee shop and you just write, you know, about your feelings for a few hours. Easier said than done for anyone who's tried it, for anyone that's done shadow work, for anyone that's done any of that, writing about their memories, trying to connect their memories to what's happening now, writing about the breakdown of a relationship, that kind of thing. You're really trying to get to the oyster, the pearl inside the oyster at the bottom of the sea. It's not going to be an easy feat. It's not going to be something where you write a few paragraphs and you're like, yeah, great, I'm done. It's very hard work. It takes for you to push down your emotional resistance, push through your emotional resistance, and keep writing, even when your heart and your mind is exhausted and you just want to put the pen down. You just want to abandon it. You just want to escape. You don't want to go there anymore. And as you peel back the layers and you really get down to the musculoskeletal system, things start to get scary because, again, it's not a risk-free transaction. You feel at risk. You feel vulnerable. You feel like, oh God, I'm hitting nails on the head. And at some point, I'm gonna strike gold. I'm gonna hit oil, and it's gonna cover me, and it's gonna be scary, and everything's gonna change. And that is terrifying sometimes, especially if you've had those little safe houses and those blankets that you've put around you. It is terrifying. So you need to keep going. And that's part of releasing for me. A big part of releasing for me is writing. And I'm planning on doing a diploma in therapeutic journaling. I feel like I have a lot of organic knowledge on this subject. I've been writing since I was tiny. I used to pretend to write before I knew the alphabet as a child, as a 18-month-old, 18 months, yeah, 18 months, 2 years, I used to pretend to write before I knew the alphabet. My mum said I used to imitate the way adults would write, I just use squiggly lines. So actually it was the feeling of the pen in my hand that was so cathartic and so therapeutic. It's not even what I'm writing half the time, it's the feeling of writing, that connection, that bridge between the conscious and the unconscious through the pen is so overwhelming to me. It's an endless source of joy and fascination for me, the writing process. So I feel like I have a lot of organic knowledge to put forth, maybe just from experience, so it'll be anecdotal, but I would love to do a diploma in therapeutic journaling as well, so I can really look at the ins and outs of the way different psychoanalytic communities use it, and the different ways that we feel it works most poignantly and on the deepest level possible. So that's something that I'll really be getting into, so I'm excited about that. Lammas is coming up, the Harvest Festival. Does that not always make you think about the things that you've harvested in your life, both good and bad? Because for me, it really does. And for me, I think the main things that I've harvested recently are, on the positive side of things, great connections with people, opportunities opening up all the time to talk to people, and to really exchange experiences with people. I had a Jungian analyst or therapist of some kind email me the other day, just asking to shoot the shit about tarot with me. She also uses it as a tool with her patients, and this is the kind of thing that's so exciting to me. I got back to her once, but I need to get back to her again. So if you're watching this, please bear with me. I'm just finishing up a couple of readings for my one reading I've got left to do for my subscriber giveaway winner. And they've been very patient waiting for it, so I'll have to do that first. But yeah, this kind of thing is great. The connections that I have on the Facebook page, the conversations we're having are great. I just really feel like in my life as well, since coming back from Stonehenge, I've reopened the heart chakra again. There was a lot of stuff that was making me very tense, making me bubble over, and I wasn't really addressing it. And then just before I went to Stonehenge, I started trying to put some pieces together and make myself feel more at peace and more on a level. And Stonehenge then kind of kick-started that entire process. It really lit a fire under me. And so that's made me feel even better about what I'm harvesting lately and what I've manifested in terms of human interconnectedness, trusting again, laying myself bare a little bit more, and letting go of some of those judgments that I maybe felt were keeping me safe, or maybe giving me some unconscious sense of superiority in some way. I don't know. There have been connections in my life, a couple of connections in my life, which have kind of gone out to the perimeters because of one or two things that have happened in the past, kind of uncertainty between us and whatnot. And I really felt like, okay, I need to really knock this all down and get it back to the baseline. The baseline is love, the baseline is unity, oneness, that is it, Brahmin in a nutshell. Get rid of all of this crap. You know, it's been weighing you down for too long. Just get in touch and hold out that olive branch. Not that we were at war or anything, it's not like that. It's just kind of that sense of not knowing where you are with somebody, not knowing where you are with somebody in accordance with the past that you've had, in accordance with the things that have been said, in accordance with the energies that you felt coming into play. And then you come to that point in your life where you're like, Brahmin baby, that's all it's about. That's all it's about. We are all life force dressed up in different guises. Let's connect. You know, we don't have to connect all the way through. We don't have to completely respect each other's opinions on everything. Well, we have to respect them, but we don't have to buy them. You know, we don't have to spend every day of our lives together, but let's at least respect and embrace the Brahmin. So that's what I've done. So I feel I've really harvested that, and I'm enjoying the fruit of my labour on that one, because I had to again get over some emotional resistance. On the negative side, you know, I've realised that I've been putting some of my energy into things that didn't really serve my highest good. I think that's something we can all say at one point in our lives has come back to bite us in the arse. And this shift that I've been going through, which was the last thing that I really thought I might talk about, this shift that I talked about in the Be Your Own Friend, Hold Your Own Hand video, a lot of the repercussions of that are levelling out now. When you first go through a shift, when you first experience it, and it really like comes upon you like a massive tsunami wave, and you know, you really feel it with every fibre of your being, and you have to acknowledge it. It's almost like you're being forced to. You're not going to get away with not acknowledging it. There is no choice. There's no option for that. When that happens to you, sometimes you feel that you want to embrace this paradigm shift so much, and you want to be so accepting of it, that you need to kind of throw your entire life out of the window. You need to start making these ludicrous changes, these changes that were never on the cards before. Maybe you want to run away and become a travelling minstrel or a monk, or you want to leave everybody behind that you've known for all these years, or you want to denounce every belief that you had. You want to say, I'm starting all over again from scratch, nobody knows me, I don't know myself, I'm running away, I'm losing my mind. It can be very extreme. It can be very extreme, and it's very confusing, super confusing. And I think that's levelling out now, and I love that part where the sea becomes calm again, and where you can think, okay, this is a very, very precious gift to me. Let me think about how I utilise it. Let me think about how I harness it. How do I break this horse? How do I put reins on it and ride it, you know? So that the shift is levelling out, and I think that even though I feel that a lot of the negative stuff that I was feeling, which were the precursor to this shift that I went through that was so... it felt really like magnanimous and beyond me, and like, how the hell do I deal with this? Now that it's levelled out, I realise that I've harvested that too. I've harvested this time for myself of quiet contemplation. I've harvested this wonderful time of revisiting myself. I'm shaking my own hand again. I'm coming back to myself. I had a meditation teacher once who, as we were going into the deep meditation, she said, every time you begin to meditate, you meet with yourself within. There's a meeting every time, and the meeting changes. Sometimes that meeting is easy, it's organic, it's something that comes very naturally, it's something that you fall into and you go with that flow. Flow is a big word for me at the moment. And sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's challenging, sometimes there's a little bit of a Tetris thing where you're not sure how to build the wall and you're trying to connect but you can't connect, and it's frustrating. And she said, whatever happens, however you meet with yourself within at this moment, for this meditation on this evening, you need to accept, you need to acknowledge, you need to observe. Don't become frustrated by it, just observe and then go back to the breath. Observe, yes, it's challenging tonight. There's something there that wasn't there before. There's something there that I can't quite get into or connect with, but that's okay. Let's return to the breath and let's see how it goes. Let's see where it goes on from here. Let's remain with the unfolding moment. Let's not get hung up on what was so great about last time, that's not so good about this time. Forget that. Acknowledge, release, surrender. And that was great for me. That was so poignant for me. I remember smiling in my lotus position, having a little smile to myself about that. That was fantastic. So, yeah, there's that levelling out, I think. And that meeting of me with me, I'm going through that now after that levelling out. I'm meeting myself and I'm seeing how it feels and I'm trying it on, and it actually feels incredibly refreshing and beautiful and meaningful. And I've manifested that too. I've harvested that too. So I shouldn't be so hung up on the negative crap, and looking at how I've harvested the difficulties that I was going through. Yes, I did harvest those things because I wasn't observant, or I wasn't self-aware, or I spent energy where I needn't have spent energy. Yes, it's important to acknowledge that. It's important for me to recognise how that mistake came into being so I could learn that lesson. It's great for me to be aware of that. That's what I want to do. But when the shift has kind of levelled out and it's calm water and I get to meet myself within, I've harvested that for myself too. And that is a very poignant time that I get to embrace, that I get to enjoy. So, these are the things that I wanted to say, really. I hugged trees a few times in the last couple of weeks. Tree hugger. Never really understood why that's supposed to be derogatory. People sometimes throw it around like it's supposed to be derogatory. Like, I just recently watched that South Park episode where Cartman is so down on hippies, and then the hippies start this great big festival, and they forget about the corporations because they're too busy smoking the reefer. And I'm surprised that tree hugger wasn't thrown around. I'm surprised that not one single hippie in that episode hugged a tree. That's really surprising to me. But, I think our connection with trees is poignant on several different levels, but I just wanted to mention one way in which I think it's so great, is that a tree provides us with an analogy of how we can live well, right? Because we are strong, we can be strong in our core, we can be centered, we can know where we are, and we can lay foundations down, the roots, and we can get nutrients from what we find in those strong foundations. And that's exactly like a tree. A tree can do that. And a tree ages and, kind of gnarls up and changes over time, and it becomes weather beaten, but it stays strong. And then at the top of the tree is where it's pliable. It's where it adapts to the changing circumstances. if you don't yield, if you don't bend to these unexpected winds and these unexpected seasons of change, then you're going to break. You're going to break in two. You're not going to last through the storm. So it's important to be malleable, to be open-minded, to understand that you don't need to have that much attachment to the outcome. If you're strong in your core, and you understand what your desired feeling is and who you want to be for yourself, then the circumstances that change, the twists and turns, the unexpected, you can deal with that from your strong core, because you are strong enough to be adaptable with your behaviour, with your words, with your decisions, you know. You can have core principles, but you can adapt them to the situation that comes along, and you needn't feel less because of that. You know, it just means that you are strong in your core, you're comfortable with your being. And that's such a great thing. That's another thing that I'm learning. So I guess that's why I've hugged trees a few times recently. And someone saw me on one occasion, and I just know that he was a little bit jealous. I know that he wanted to do it, and I hope he did go off and do it as well. Instead I'll be like, my work here is done. I've got somebody hugging a tree. They needed that. They know they did. Much love, beautiful people. Blessed be. Thank you so much for listening.